So there's a couple extra things when it comes to comic composition compared to normal composition. So number one, so you need to keep your speech bubbles in mind. Because you're gonna have, not only just the illustration, but you gotta put speech bubbles somewhere most of the time. So you're gonna wanna make sure you leave room for them to be placed. Plan ahead. And then the second thing that you need to keep in mind, you need to make sure that what is happening in the scene needs to be kept super, super clear. With compositions, you can kind of just mess around a lot, right? Like sometimes compositions don't make sense at all when you have just regular illustrations, right? But with comics, you need to keep in mind the principle of show, not tell. Show, don't tell is very, very strong, right? Especially if you have an action comic, right? You're not gonna say, I'm gonna punch you now, and I'm gonna kick you now, and oh, here comes my ultra attack, right? I mean, that's very anime-esque. But most of the time, you kind of just want to show them doing the action. There's another thing that, again, kind of goes along with cinematics. It's called the 180 rule, keeping all directions consistent. Say if you have one character and they're going into a door, and they're going this way into the door. The next panel is not going to be that person going through the door and going out this direction. That makes no sense. If you're doing this panel, that if they go in that way, they also exit out that way. They should all be kind of facing the same way, going the same direction, right? It makes the action a lot clearer. Let's talk a little bit about cinematics. Now, cinematics are used for any form of visual storytelling, whether that's comics, video games, animations, movies, any sort of visual storytelling. So those are your shot type. So the first one is your establishing shot. So your establishing shots, all right, so if I kind of drew some mountains, yeah, so there's the house here. You might put the speech bubble here or something, right? So it would either be like up here and up here, leaving that empty space to make sure we leave room for it. So your establishing shots are a full view of a setting, and they're usually used to show a change in setting or settings in general. So say if you're going from, their character's like, okay, we're taking a road trip now, and everyone's like, yeah, let's go. The next shot may be an establishing shot of a car driving through the forest. So your establishing shots are meant to show kind of going between certain places. Next shot that we're talking about is the long shot. Say we got two people kind of standing around, right? But you notice how you can see them head to toe. Say there's somebody in the foreground here just kind of walking away. And there's a fire hydrant. There's the door. The sign is up here. More doors. And then the speech bubbles would probably be back here or something. So your long shot is when you see the characters from head to toe. Long shots are meant to show characters in a setting. So it's kind of meant to establish where the character is. So if this is meant to establish just the setting, this is meant to show where the characters are. Okay, medium shot. Let's say that I'm drawing, this is a really common one that everybody knows. There's buildings, more building, sidewalk, lamppost. Right, so medium shots are waist and up and knees and up, right? Most common. This common shot generally just used for conversation. So you'll see yourself using a medium shot a lot. Totally fine. There's a few other things you can do with a medium shot, like an over the shoulder, which is what it's like. Think of the viewer as a camera, where you kind of have the camera going over another character's shoulder. Close up. Okay, so close up shot. Let's say we got two speech bubbles here. This is my favorite kind of composition. It's always like a close up and then two speech bubbles. Close up shot. Shoulders and up, usually used to convey emotion, right? You see the character's face, you see them there, you see the little twitches of the eye. Expressions are very, very important when it comes to comics. Extreme close-up. Okay, extreme close-ups. Close-up shots of the face, also used for emotion, or they're mainly used for slight changes in emotion, right? You know that super dramatic thing that some movies do where it's like they'll have a character staring at you and then suddenly like it zooms in on their eyes and their eyebrows like crinkle in, right? That's a very big kind of extreme close-up shot thing. So an insert shot, this is my favorite one. I love insert shots. Right. Oh well, insert shots, close-up shots of other parts of a character or object meant to show interaction or movement or emotion, right? Sometimes you'll have shots of people fiddling with their hands in their hands in their lap, right? Or they're fiddling with a piece of paper on the table or something, right? Insert shots are meant to show those kinds of things. Final shot, this is the last one, is a Dutch angle. So this one's not less of a shot, this one's more just something that I wanted to show. It can be done in combination with any of these shots, but it's more of an angle when the horizon line, or when your horizon line, is tilted. Meant to show confusion, oh boy, or creeping, anxiety. Right, so Dutch angles are kind of meant to show like a lead up to an action, right? It's used very often in horror. If you've ever watched a horror movie, you'll probably see them a lot. When you're drawing a bedroom, I'm going to be using a technique that I like to call my floor plan technique. So I'm just going to kind of figure out where exactly I want everything to go. So what I like to do is I actually, if it's in a perspective, right, if it's 2 point inside a room, I like to start off with laying down everything as if it was a floor plan, right? If you've ever seen floor plans, you know how they're kind of like 2D, top down, right? You look at them that way. So she kind of has her bed here. It's a really big bed, and she has a nightstand over here. And she has a headboard that's really big and a couple pillows. And then there's a shelf here on the desk. There's a chair here. She has a television that connects to her laptop. And then there's a carpet. So this is the room that I'm kind of thinking of, right? So this is Daisy's room. When I have this, right, this is my floor plan, right? What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hide this layer. I'm gonna figure out my perspective now. And now, based off of how I've skewed it, now I can draw everything three-dimensional. So this kind of plans out where everything is gonna go. I'm gonna make this smaller. I'm gonna stay zoomed out too, because that makes it easier. So I'm also keeping my rule of thirds in mind while I'm drawing this too. So I'm kind of thinking about like, okay, it's like, how does this bed kind of work in composition, right? What's actually happening, stuff like that. But I'm also leaving areas of low priority, right? So I have this section in the foreground up here, right? So this is gonna be the desk. So the desk is right here, and there's also a shelf here. But these are considered low priority. They're directly in the foreground. But when it comes to priority, especially when it comes to comics, you have to establish what your priorities are. Your number one priority, most of the time when it comes to your comics, should be your characters. If there's a main character in shot, you need to make sure that nothing is covering them up. You can have a little bit covering them up. It depends on the effect that you want. But if they're talking, and you have a setting, you gotta put your speech bubble somewhere, you need to make sure that your characters are clear and that you don't have much covering them up, right? So this is more of an extreme long shot that I didn't talk about, but it's basically just a farther out version of the long shot. In general, you kind of gotta figure out where exactly you want the eyes to flow around the composition as well. Ideal is you want to kind of go up to the bottom, top of the corner to the bottom corner over here, right? So across the screen, that's your ideal, because our brains will automatically prioritize certain areas over others. But yeah, Daisy, my main character here, she's like high priority, right? She's the main character in focus. Harkening back to the past live stream that we did, right, with composition, she's also within the rule of thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4. So she's kind of on this pinpoint here. If you cut your whole composition into a 3x3 grid, your main center focus should generally be on one of those intersecting points. Alright, so I'm kind of covering up areas that I feel are slightly lower priority, but I also have to keep in mind the flow of where the eyes are going. So I'm kind of starting from the top up here and then flowing downwards. This is a low priority area, and I would put a speech bubble here, but then it kind of doesn't flow quite as well. So like what I could do is have them go all across here, but then it leaves a super giant empty space up here.
If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Join our art community with the links down below. If you'd like to support the channel and the creation of free arts education, become a member on Patreon for working files, behind-the-scenes posts, and discounts on our class offerings. If you enjoyed this video, here's a couple other videos you can check out next.